In this YouTube video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Atronach stone in Wildlander in under 10 minutes. The reason for this video is I've seen a lot of questions in the Discord and the Reddit asking about how the Atronach stone works and how to get around some of the hurdles. Starting off, let's talk about the cons that come with the Atronach stone. The first one's a pretty big one, which is you no longer regenerate magicka whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's incredibly difficult period to do that because you take a natural negative 1000% regeneration to your magicka. The next con that comes along with the Atronach stone is a lack of buffs from eating. So in the normal state of Wildlander, you regenerate stamina per second, or you have an increase to magicka regeneration or health regeneration, etc. when you're eating different foods. This is no longer the case when you're under the effects of the Atronach stone. Now, the third penalty that comes along with using this stone is less useful potions when it comes to magicka. Now, what this means is you take a 1/3 penalty to your magic potions. So if your potion typically would have given you 30 magicka over 10 seconds, it's now only going to give you 20 magicka over 10 seconds. Now, let's quickly dive into how can you remedy these issues. So when it comes to the lack of regeneration, the Julianos Engraved Bones are a great place to turn because they'll regenerate 1 magicka over 3,600 seconds. Now, what you need to get these is you need to get your harvesting skill up to level 2, and you need large animal bones, which you can find from hunters, merchants, or you can get them yourself from wolves, deer, or anything of similar size or larger. The second thing you can do is you can dip your toe into alchemy and create your own magic potions. Now, this is actually a really useful method because you can just pump yourself full of magicka potions whenever you need them. The third way to regenerate magicka, and we'll discuss this more in a bit, which is taking damage from mages. So with the Atronach stone comes a 50% buff to magic absorption, meaning half of all spells cast on you, you absorb the spell entirely, take no damage, and it boosts your magicka up. Another really good place to go is enchanting your weapons. So you can enchant your weapons to steal magicka from enemies as you hit them, which is a great way to renew your magicka over time as you're in combat with each and every hit. A quick shout out to the Mace of Molag Bal because not only does it regenerate stamina, but it also regenerates magicka quite a bit, and it's very easy to get, which you can get from level 20 onward from Markarth. If you improve your skills in the alteration skill tree, you can actually use Absorb Magicka spell, which will then steal magicka from those you're attacking, which also is a great way to renew your magicka. Now finally, if you're very well versed in Wildlander and how all the mechanics work, you can very specifically plan a build to get over the negative 1000 magicka regeneration. While I don't recommend going this route unless you're very well versed, it is technically a possibility. Now, touching on the lack of food buffs, the big hit for most people, myself included, is the lack of stamina regeneration that you would normally get from early game foods. What I found when I was playing is that it's not that you can't travel, it just makes travel slower. So the first thing you can do is bring things to kill time. For instance, again, jumping back on alchemy, if you bring alchemical ingredients, you can just work on alchemy while you're traveling when you run out of stamina. So that way you have something to do in between, or you can focus on enchanting, or if you bring animal carcasses with you, you can just skin them and such while you're waiting to regenerate stamina. Another way to get around this is putting regeneration stamina enchantments on your gear. For instance, in my playthrough, I actually now regenerate stamina quicker than I lose it when walking, so I can pretty much always travel. Tying into the previous step, the next pretty big way to do it is putting your attribute points into stamina. Now, attribute points are what you get when you level up, and you get to choose between putting a point in stamina, magicka, or health. If you put a point in stamina, what happens is after you get over 105 base stamina, you actually begin to regenerate stamina over time. And each time you put another point in this, you regenerate more stamina per second, which then kind of counteracts your stamina drain while walking, fighting, etc. Now, touching on the less useful potions because they now have a penalty to them, I found this to be the least problematic because realistically that just means you either A, use stronger potions, or B, you carry more potions that you use extra. Now, let's quickly touch on the pros that come with the Atronach Stone. So if you weren't aware, you gain a huge magicka fortify buff of 350 magicka. This goes without saying, it's just really nice to have a much bigger magicka pool, and it gives you a lot more options, especially early on in the game. This also can be paired with things like the Necromancer's Amulet, meaning you would get a 350 bonus from the Atronach Stone, and then another 200 bonus from the Necromancer's Amulet. The other pretty big buff is you have a 50% chance to absorb any incoming spells. So not only does this make you much better of a mage killer, but it also means that you're going to naturally regenerate your magicka just by getting hit with spells. Touching on the viable playstyles and races, I would say Imperial is a great choice because it helps balance out your melee abilities because of your stamina strengths, as well as then your Atronach Stone focuses more on the spell side, which helps your character to be pretty well rounded overall. Another great choice is High Elves because they help increase your natural absorption rate. They give you an extra 50 bonus to your magicka, and they have a huge regeneration ability that you can use once a day to regenerate 3,000 magicka over the course of 30 seconds. They also happen to start off with the highest base magicka in the game. The next race I would take a look at is Bretons, which come with a natural magicka resistance, and a great once-a-day ability where you can absorb all spells cast on you over the course of, I think, 8 seconds, which just bolsters further your strength against mages, because now you have a natural magic resistance, you have a natural 50% chance to absorb spells in general, and then if you're fighting a monster of a mage, you can just decide, hey, I'm going to absorb all spells you cast on me. Now, taking a look at the different playstyles, let's take a look at mages, spell swords, the two-handed variant as well, and then vampire alteration users. Starting off with mages, I would say that they're the hardest simply because you rely so fully on magic in general that it can be a little bit hard to regenerate at times, but a way that can kind of help with this, as I mentioned earlier, is you can focus alteration on your absorb magicka ability, which helps renew it over time. I would say that the spell sword is probably the easiest way to play. That's the way that I'm currently playing in my current playthrough. And the reason for this is you use your magicka to sort of annihilate any enemies in front of you that you can. And then while that's regenerating, I run around with a weapon that also steals magicka with every hit until I'm, back to being able to use magicka. I would say that this, again, is probably the most fun and easiest way to do it. I think the two-handed variant also is pretty useful, because now you do increased damage with every hit using a two-handed weapon. It kind of just makes you a monster. The final build that I recommend is the Vampire Alteration route, where you get this Drain Vitality ability that drains stamina, health, and magicka all at once. So not only does this help bolster your magicka, making it so that you're pretty much never out, but they also get a bunch of different buffs just for being a vampire that really suits this sort of playstyle. Now, the final area that I wanted to quickly talk about is just how huge of a role-playing potential the Atronach Stone has. So now your character has this innate ability to just absorb magicka around them. They don't naturally regenerate it, so it's more of a absorbing the elements around you, sort of being more in tune with the world as opposed to, hey, I'm just waiting for my magicka to come back. Not only that, but it makes you think much more critically about how you're going to be playing, what your playstyle is going to look like, how you handle different enemies. For instance, mages are much easier to deal with than they were before, things like that. I really enjoyed playing with the Atronach Stone. I think it's one of the pinnacles for how Wildlander should be played. Now that was everything I had for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, consider subscribing. Stay safe, Wildlanders.